Ketevan. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. We're in for the third installment now of my vacation book haul, and this one's actually from two separate vacations. I initially thought I would film the Lithuania part separately, but then when I went to edit it, it was literally 5-minute long video, which good for you. I hate watching long videos too. So, but I decided to add a second trip to just kind of like fill it up and avoid putting out another video. So the separate vacation was to Bulgaria. I went to visit my friend in Greece, and we went to Sofia, Bulgaria for the weekend. She lives in the north of Greece, so it was a pretty easy trip. And so I wasn't expecting to actually buy any books there. I had already read Time Shelter, which is a Bulgarian book, so I thought, okay, that's enough for Bulgaria. But then, of course, you know, of course. So first thing I'm going to do is put in the footage from the Lithuania section, which I have already filmed separately, so that's happening right now. Go. So I have 4 books from Vilnius in Lithuania, and I have now 2 from like Lithuanian authors, and then 2 that I picked up on a whim because they were inexpensive and perfect for Women in Translation month. So perfect, you're hearing about them. So the first one, actually they're all Women in Translation. Yeah, so that's cool. So the first one, I was like all set to buy it, and then I was like, well, I'll just give another look around, look-see. And this is Tofylis, or The Marriage of Zosė? I'm not sure how to say it. And it's by this woman author who, her pen name is I'm butchering this, I'm sorry. But anyway, it's a little tiny book, and it was written in 1897. So this is an old book, and it's written by a woman, and it's written by a peasant Lithuanian, or it's written about a peasant Lithuanian girl. So very feminist, you know, like this. She was a writer back, you know, more than 100 years ago, writing about women's lives, poor women's lives, not just rich women's lives. So I was like immediately like, oh, I need to read this. And of course it's absolutely tiny. It's only 75 pages, and it's like super, super little book. I'm really, really excited to read this. I'm definitely going to read this for Women in Translation Month. Next up, I have Those Whom I Would Like to Meet Again. I'm not even gonna try to I will butcher this author's name. I always write all the author names like in the description, so you'll see it if you want to look it up. So this is another little short story collection by this author. The author travels between the ridiculous and the sublime, the everyday and the extraordinary, and that's what I love in a short story. Like I want it to be kind of like out there, but also like grounded in everyday. So they're all over the place. They're set in Chicago, Vilnius, like all sorts of different places. And I'm really, really looking forward to this one. It's super short as well. It's less than 150 pages. And I was in this bookstore, and I just found these 2 books very inexpensively priced compared to Paris, of course. And they were both books I was like actively thinking about reading. So the first one was The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. This one is, who is this translation? By Patrick O'Brien. So this collection in particular, I had seen it multiple times on this trip, but not in this edition. I don't even think this is like Pantheon. I don't even know who owns Pantheon, but anyway, I like this cover. I think it's dramatic and funny and like pretty. And so I'd seen the same book like with the other edition, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to buy the other edition. I'm going to wait to see if I can get this one. And I had known this one was in Paris, but then I saw this one for really cheap compared to the prices in Paris. So I was like, it's a sign. I should just get it. So I decided to pick it up. It's 3 novellas by Simone de Beauvoir about women being destroyed, basically. And then we have Flights by Olga Torkarczuk. I used to know how to say her name. Yeah. And translated by Jennifer Croft. So I had read, what is it called? Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. About a year ago, actually, I want to say. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Anyway, and I knew I wanted to read another book by her. And there's this one, and then the Book of Jacob, or Books of Jacob maybe. But that one's really long. So I thought this would be a better introduction. It seems like a bunch of random stories that are somehow going to come together in the end. I don't know. They don't need to come together for me to enjoy it. But yeah, I feel like it's perfect to read on a trip, to read in the summer, to read when you're in a traveling mood. And I'm really excited to read this month for sure. Flights, yeah. Alrighty, and so now we're back to today, and the only thing I really have to say about the Lithuania books is that I did start and finish Flights by Olga Torkarczuk, and this one's translated by Jennifer Croft, and I actually liked it. I know a lot of people don't like it. It has the blue cover from Fritz Caraldo, which means it's like supposed to be fiction, but obviously it's not really 100% fiction. I mean, it is, but it also isn't. Like, there's just long sections that are kind of like nonfiction essays just kind of like thrown in there. And it's definitely the author's just kind of like putting in her political opinions sometimes, like in essay form. But if you take it for what it is, like a bunch of ramblings, vaguely sort of connected via travel and other themes related to that, collection of stories or essays or thoughts, it's an enjoyable ride, basically. I enjoyed going through it. I enjoyed reading the different sections. Some of them are quite memorable, especially the longer ones, of course. And I don't know, I really liked it. I will say though, I think it is easier to read as an audiobook, which is what I did. So maybe that is partially why people don't enjoy this as much, but I don't know. I just really liked it. If you go into it thinking it's a novel, I don't think you will enjoy it for sure. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Love it for what it is. So, okay, that was the last Lithuanian book, or the only Lithuanian book that I've read. And it's not Lithuanian, actually, it's Polish, but the book I bought in Lithuania. So, Bulgaria, here we have, yeah, first I'll do this one because I literally picked it up just because of the beautiful cover. Look how pretty it is. It's a collection of short stories called Circus, Bulgaria by Deyan, Enev. And where's the translator? Oh, Kapka, Kassabova. Okay, that's funny. That's the author of one of the other books I bought. So, okay. So yeah, this is a short story collection. I bought it at this really cute independent bookstore in Sofia, and I really liked that bookstore. It was a really cool concept. They had a loft with, oh, did I take photos? I didn't, sorry. I'll try to put the name of the bookstore down below, but inside there's a loft with like a couch that you can read on, and it had a very like open air, like the whole side of the building was an open, you know, those windows that open up, or the doors that open up into like basically no walls, and it was just a very cool vibe, and the selection of books were quite impressive. It was the first bookstore though, so I forced myself to like not seriously consider books that weren't Bulgarian. So I just looked at the little tiny section they had of Bulgarian translated literature. But I did look through everything else, and they had lots of cool art books and feminist books. And anyway, so Circus, Bulgaria. So I guess I'll just read from the blurb and why I picked it up. It was this bit: drawing on the monsters and myths of Balkan folklore, the brutal reality of the communist regime, and the dazzling magic of Deyan and Enev's imagination, this original and inventive collection of stories has a surreal, almost hypnotic quality. So that is my jam for short stories. Love the folklore being entwined in, and love the wacky and weird. So I'm looking forward to, oh, here's the name of the bookstore. I have the receipt in here. Mahala Bookstore. Yeah, so in case I forget to write it down below, it's Mahala Bookstore. So yeah, looking forward to this one. And then this one's not Bulgarian. My friend that I was on vacation with, she wanted to buy a bunch of books for people who visit her to have when they go to the beach. So we went to this used bookstore, and they had no Bulgarian literature. So I was like, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. I'm not going to buy anything. She bought a giant stack of books, and I still ended up buying one book, of course. But I think it's a pretty good choice. It's a play called Major Barbara by George Bernard Shaw. And I actually didn't know this because I was kind of confused, like why the Penguin Black Classic just says Bernard Shaw. And I Googled it, or I Googled him, and I realized that he hated the George part of his name and didn't want to be called that, which I find so interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure about the story about that. If anyone knows, like, maybe he was just his personal preference, but anyway. So yeah, so this was at a used bookstore for, I think, like €6 or something. But I think it was good because I just read Pygmalion like a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. And the premise of this play really intrigued me. So it's about a millionaire who loves money. His daughter, Barbara, she's kind of like a bleeding heart liberal of the time. And she works, you know, for the Salvation Army and for charity. And she wants to save her father's soul because he's so like obsessed with money. And then they need money, the Salvation Army needs money for something, and then her father comes in and donates. And then so that kind of makes Barbara think like, well, is he really that evil? because he donated the money, or does he still like need saving or whatever? And to be honest, it's the ultimate like timely classic, because I think right now our society is sort of reckoning like millionaires who write checks for charity, like are they actually making the world a better place? Or is it a way for them to get good press? So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting themes explored in this, and I know I like his work, so good for me, I think. And then the last book, I've already read it. I mean, I read it on the trip. It's called Border, A Journey to the Edge of Europe by Kapka Kassabova. So she is a Bulgarian writer who emigrated to the UK, and this is actually written in English. It's not translated, which makes sense because now I realize she's a translator of Bulgarian literature, so obviously she can write in English pretty well. And this is actually a nonfiction, sort of like, I don't know, what would you call it? Travelogue? History via travelogue. That's what I'm going to call it. What does the back of the book say? Travel, memoir, history. Okay, so yeah, so history via travelogue. So basically she goes back to the region where she's from and explores the borders between Bulgaria, Greece, and not Istanbul, Turkey. So I'm so happy I have this book because now I have this gorgeous map. So this is like a handwritten map. So yeah, like Bulgaria is up here, Greece is over here, and Turkey's over here. That whole region historically was known as Thrace, so the Thracians lived there, and then obviously throughout, you know, modern history, the borders got changed up a lot and have often been very militarized, and you know, because Bulgaria and Greece are in the EU and Turkey is not, so nowadays like refugees and migrants are trying to get into the EU via this border. During the communist era, it was the opposite. People couldn't leave Bulgaria to leave the USSR. So it's just like a very interesting story of borders, but also of the people in this region. And she does it very well because she's presenting it as a story based on her journey around the region to explore and find stories from people, either the current people who are moving people across the border or dealing with the border or living kind of like based on the border, or people whose family members, you know, were previously involved with border activity. And I gotta say, the border is still like a big deal, even between Greece and Bulgaria. My friend, she lives in Greece, and Greece is a very inexpensive country. Like everything is literally half the price as it is in France. But she still wanted to stock up on stuff in Bulgaria because Bulgaria is like another half of the price. The prices were out of this world cheap. Like I was really, really shocked. And so because of that, on the border, there's a border town on the Bulgarian side where they just have stores that are meant for Greek people to cross the border, shop really quickly, and then go back to Greece with their haul. So yeah, the border is basically very important in this region, or not important, but I would say impactful. I don't think borders should ever be considered important because they're artificial, but they do have impact on people's lives. And so this is a really beautiful look at that. It's really well written, and it's just a really nice story on top of that. So that's all the Bulgarian books, or all the books I bought in Bulgaria rather. Only 2 were Bulgarian. Alrighty, so that is my last book haul of the summer. I definitely don't have any travel on the books for at least a couple months now, so I'm definitely taking a break from book buying, and I'll be reading these books and obviously the books on my shelf. And anyway, so now that I've got my Bulgarian books, I still don't have a Bulgarian female author. Kapka Kassabova is female, but the book I bought from her is nonfiction, so I want a fiction. So if anyone has any female authors, or of course always trans authors are Bulgarian, please recommend them down below. And thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!